Attention listeners, mark your calendars for Colorado Gives Day on December 10th. Support Aftersight and give to the causes you care about. Go to coloradogivesday.org/organizations/aftersight between now and December 10th to make your donation.
Welcome to Blind Level Tech. This isn't just accessible tech talk. This is technology on a whole new level. We're showing you just how possible it is to live the life you want.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech. Yes, how deep can Evan's voice go? We're going to find that out today. Oh, yeah. But I am your host, Evan Starnes, and I am joined by my co-host, Kelvin Crosby.
Hey, it's so good to see you. No, I can't see you. Let's see how low I can go. How you doing,
How
Evan?
low can you go? I am doing wonderfully.
Shoot, man.
I'm doing pretty good, man.
Oh, yes.
Whew. Good Lord, it feels like it's been a couple minutes.
I kind of cracked my voice on that one.
Yeah, you did a little bit. It sounded pretty good.
Oh, man.
Oh,
We got to get into our tech piece of the day. What's your tech piece of the day, man?
woo! Yeah, so, oh my gosh, my tech piece of the day is 100% a big, massive, fat tech wish, and probably something I definitely will not be getting. But I got to go over the weekend to the Flatirons Mall, and there they had an Apple store. And at the Apple store, there was a demo of a really, really expensive headset. That's like $3,500. Yeah,
And you bought it, didn't you?
No way. Oh my gosh. So the whole reason we're not actually going to do an entire episode on this is because I don't feel like I got like enough of an experience with it. But basically, to cut to the chase, I got to try out the Apple Vision Pro demo with VoiceOver, and it's really weird.
So that's your pick of the week?
That's my tech piece. It's weird, dude, because like the way you interact with it, like you use your right hand and your pointer and middle finger together with your thumb to go back and forth between, around the screen through items. And then you use your left hand and then do like a pinch between your thumb and pointer finger to double tap or select something. Mm-hmm. Needless to say, I was bouncing all over the place in that screen. And I had to have the demo because the lady that was helping me could see like what I was seeing on the demo and could kind of control aspects of it. And I was like, I had kind of have her step in a couple times because trying to get around it was super, super weird. So if you don't have like good hand, whatever coordination.
Well, it's not hand and eye coordination. That's what they say.
No, that's what I'm saying. It's like, it's hand face coordination because you got this big thing on. It's really not having a touchscreen or a keyboard or something to push buttons on or
just
to swipe across. Just air is weird. So my tech piece of the week, though, is going to have to be the Apple Vision Pro.
All right.
What's yours?
My tech piece of the week is a software that I use all the time for live streaming called Open Broadcast System.
OBS, baby.
And tell you it's accessible. You can navigate it. You can work it. You can do what you need to do and sound like $1 million. And it's just right out of the can. Obviously, there's some things you got to fix and adjust. But last night, I did a live stream, and we were running into issues with the middleman before I stream it out to the world. And I was able to go into OBS, change my stream key, boom, boom. We were live on YouTube. And so I was like, thank you to OBS. It's just having a straight system that I can know how to use. I can sign into my accounts, get it done, and bam. And I don't have to pay anything.
Yeah, it's free because it's open source and totally accessible. Really great way to get live streaming if you want to start live streaming. And if you're ever interested in actually becoming a live streamer, we did a 2-parter episode on live streaming a few weeks ago. So definitely go and check that out. In fact, this week's episode kind of correlates well with those past couple episodes because, dude, we've been doing this show since like March, you and I together, March, April. I've been doing this since like March of last year with Jonathan, and I've been doing, messing around and doing podcasting for a while now, but we have not done an episode on podcasting if you're a blind or low vision person. Starting a podcast, editing it, finding guests and also distributing that content so that people can listen to it. And there are a lot of, people out there that are blind, low vision, and even not that I talk to a lot of people that are like, I kind of wish I had a podcast going. So, so today's topic of discussion is podcasting as a blind person, because it's definitely getting your feet wet in this podcasting world is definitely, there are a lot of different ways you can go. So hopefully we'll answer some of your questions.
But I think we should start with the first thing. And that is, if you're going to start a podcast, what is your topic? What is your niche that you're going to focus? Like here at Blind Level Tech, we talk about technology for visually impaired people.
That's the niche.
That's our niche. Like if you go look at my podcast, the Perseverance Podcast, that is all about people that persevered through really hard times in their life. That's a niche, right? And if you look at Blind Chick, it is visually impaired people that have really cool stories,
sharing their stories,
right?
Exactly.
And so that's a niche. So those are the things. And when you say, and I think really the important thing before you even go find software and everything, you gotta find that niche. And so if you're a big fan of race boats, right? And you love the sound of it, and that's going to be your new podcast. You're going to be an announcer. Then that's going to be your niche, and that's really narrow, and you will get an audience for that. And so that's where if you like, let's just say it, like you and I were in a conversation the other day. The person's idea was great, but way too broad.
Exactly.
And so being niched is the key. Would you agree?
I would 100% agree with that. Because last week we were on a call actually with another student from that, but he's deafblind and he wants to start a podcast. And, we're kind of trying to be some inspirational figures or whatever. I try to not use that word too much because I feel like it's overused, controversial opinion, but, we're just trying to kind of motivate him and help and give him some guidance. And, if you want to just talk on a podcast, but yet you don't know what you want to talk about, you just want to talk, it's going to be a little weird trying to kind of establish your show, unless you want to just make a dedicated rant podcast. And some people have done that too.
And it makes it very difficult to be able to market. And if you want to put AdSense to it, to market it out, more stuff on social media, it just makes it more challenging. But I think the next thing after you kind of figure out your niche would be practice. Just go. Would you agree to get in front of that mic and
I think that's the best advice I can give anybody starting a podcast. Like, seriously, like if you have literally a topic that you want to talk about, that is when you go and literally just hit record and talk about it, and then go back and listen to yourself. And that's a hard thing because even now, I do not like listening to my own voice on recordings. I'll tell you that. But you don't even need a podcast like Audacity or a DAW for editing or anything at this stage. Like you could literally, if you want to get into that podcasting mindset, open a voice recorder app like Voice Memos or or Easy Voice Recorder or whatever on Android, whatever recording software you have, on whatever device is closest to you, and then just start running with it and give it. And if I have also kind of establish another thing that you might want to establish is how do you start the show? Because BLT, the way BLT started, I mean, we would just, when Jonathan and I first started it, when we first did it, we would just jump in, and it was really cool. But depending on, if you want to have like a co-host and stuff, you got to figure out your dynamic and like, how do you be assertive and literally run a show? And then how do you help your co-host, follow your lead? It's almost like, it's like riding a bike, that's kind of another way to frame it.
Yeah. I mean, I would say like riding a bike, but I think as we are, like, as you're practicing, like one of the biggest things I did is before I launched any podcast is I went and interviewed all of my in-laws, because there's six of them in the family, and then their wives, and then my mother-in-law and my father-in-law, and it really gave me a really good practice. And I would send it out to them, get them feedback, how I could make it better and so forth. And it helped me with my editing, because I would edit these podcasts, get all the ums and filler words out and so forth. And that was one thing that is really difficult for somebody visually impaired to understand, like how far do you take your editing? And that also comes to your style. Like this podcast, we do a little bit of editing. We don't do too much. We allow some of our shenanigans in here. So,
Yup. So, as you can tell, I'm sure.
Yep. But if you go listen to Perseverance podcast, it's very, very professional, and you will hear very few filler words. You'll hear just enough to keep it like human, but also it'll be very, very, very well tight and niched down in the Perseverance podcast. But if you go listen to my radio show,
it's completely different.
It's all over the place. So that, like you said, you really got to find your niche. Are you going to do interviews? You're going to do solos? You're going to do a combination? Are you going to do storytelling? Are you going to do a ramble? Are you going to do outline?
Do you want to have a co-host?
Yep.
Do you want to just do it?
And just a FYI, if you're going to do a co-host and you're not doing it through a business like with Aftersight, you need to have a contract. A contract is must. If you're going to get into this world with a co-host, you need to figure out who owns the podcast. Is it a dual podcast ownership? Yeah, you can do a couple of shows without anything. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you blow up and you become big, if you don't got that contract in place, or your partner wants to see you on something and you don't have that contract in place,
you're dead.
It's going to be brutal. So, so that's one thing there. So let's dive into the tech part of this, of launching this.
Because you had a good segue earlier. Really deciding how you want the show to flow and what you want to remove or add in is super, super crucial. And if you go back and listen to some of the early episodes of Blind Level Tech versus now, you're going to hear some serious night and day differences between those episodes. And when it comes to, finding software to edit in, I'm always going to say, that it's easier to edit on the computer than it is on your phone, because some people you might want to try that. And hey, if it works for you, that's great. But the best experiences I've had have been just in a simple DAW. I literally use Audacity, and it allows you to, trim things out. You can work with multiple tracks. So if you want to have, you and your guest on separate audio tracks, that way, like, if like, let's say, Kelvin, you're talking and then I make a noise on my end, I can just mute part of that track, but keep you going, and it I don't have to do any weird audio.
So that way you don't see how rude he is when he's interrupting me when I'm talking, right?
Yeah, and I don't hear all the all the stuff I say, like under my breath, and
we know he's not saying nice things,
Yeah. This darn Kelvin, I gotta. This is so terrible. I gotta record with this dude on. No, just kidding. What I'm saying here is, if you have a computer, especially if you have a Windows computer, and you've never really messed with like audio editing and DAWs before, digital audio workstations is what I'm getting at here. I'm always going to say Audacity is a great way to get into audio editing and stuff. Goldwave's another good option, but it's not free. It's like $60, but it's also accessible. But that's the best way I would recommend getting into editing. Now, as far as recording, that's a whole different ballgame, because there's a lot of different platforms out there that you can use to record, and then also that make it really easy to record yourself as well as guests and a co-host on separate tracks, and it's all cloud-based as well. So what I'll say is we use Riverside, and that's what we're recording in right now.
Well, I mean, I think the other thing is, like with Riverside, it has 2 separate audio tracks. And then, but if you do like a mixer, which is what I normally use, is a mixer, and you just record right onto the local mixer with the SD card, and that also allows you to know what audio tracks is what, and you can also separate your audio tracks as well. One thing that I have, like for the radio show nowadays, if I'm doing a solo show, I just record right into my editing software. And that seems to work great for me, because I have to edit it anyways and get it to send out to the station. So, yeah, finding that sweet spot. But if you're just starting, would you agree with me on this, Evan? Just grab your iPhone, go in your closet, hang out with your coats, and just put it on speakerphone, and push on a recorder, turn down the volume for your voiceover so it's not talking the whole time, and just talk.
Start talking.
Because at the end of the day, when your phone is on speakerphone and you're in a closet with a bunch of coats, you're going to sound like $1,000,000.
Yep. You're effectively making your own recording studio by doing that.
So would you recommend people use,
I would agree.
What do you call them? AirPods?
Not for recording. If you're in that like early practicing stage of just figuring out how you host and how you talk in front of a microphone, you could get away with recording using AirPods. But like if you want the best sound quality, honestly, this might sound weird, but using the microphones just built into your phone will be totally okay and acceptable. And just like I said, to just emphasize clarity here, this is just when you're practicing, talking in front of a microphone, getting past. You might also have mic fright too, because what I've realized is that the way I talk and the way I think and do things is a little different than when I know that the recorder's going and that everything that I say is being captured. It's a mindset that you have to kind of get into, and that's why we say that's why practice makes better.
Well, and it also helps for when you start a show of anything. So if you look at any of my content, you're gonna see, hey, it's so good to see you, even though I can't see you. It's another beautiful day in the neighborhood, and I'm so excited that you right here at whatever show we're talking about. But that intro gives me at least 10 seconds to think, and it also gets my energy up, so that when I go into the conversation, I'm ready to have a good conversation. And because a lot of times when you get on ready to record something, you're getting on and you're kind of Like, I was just working on a really hard document that I got to send to a court. And so I was working on that right before we did this. And I sure wasn't. I wasn't
You were in
really
that
pumped
mindset.
up, you know? And so, but I knew I can trust my intro.
Yeah.
My intro gets me there. And then I can go right into it.
Exactly.
And be able to come out on the other side. And it gives me enough time to say the words, to think what's going to come out of my mouth, and then go through. After that, it's fair game. You know, who knows what's going to come out of your mouth?
Yeah. After that, it's up to us. It's kind of up to us and where we want to take the show. And your intro also, I feel like, especially for you, Kelvin, it's kind of a signature thing.
Yep.
You know, like, and I still think I'm trying to kind of get one. I do have fun, you know, making voices and kind of jumping into episodes talking about tech issues and stuff like that. And even just having like the welcome to another episode of Blind Level Tech. I'm your host, Evan Starnes, joined by like that is now autopilot. Like I don't even have to. I could be typing in an email and saying that at the same time. I might be a little more stumbly, but it just comes naturally.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think, so working on that, it will eventually come natural. Your first set of shows are going to be garbage.
They're going to be rough, dude.
But the thing is, it's okay to post them. Because
that's a great point.
And I think that is huge. If you do not post it, then it's your secret in your back pocket that nobody knows about. Mm-hmm. So you just posting your garbage online and saying, I have made a commitment. By making the commitment, now you got to make it better in the next one. Exactly. And that is one thing I really want to encourage you. If you're going to go down this path, make the worst podcast, start off really, really low. Make the worst podcast ever and post it. So then the next podcast, you just make it 1% better. Mm-hmm. Not 2. I said 1% better.
1%, one step at a time.
Yeah,
little
and
baby steps.
That means that you don't have if you start low, you don't have a lot to get to the next one. Next one to make it better, and then you post that, and then you do the next one, and you post that. As long as you get better every episode, you're making progress.
Well, and the way you get an audience is going to be also a lot more like it's just going to be more steady and cohesive and
exactly. And I think that's why, like right now, I've been doing my radio show for a year. Yeah, a year. I'm just now finding my voice in my radio show. Mm-hmm. It took me a year to really get it dialed in and know what I need and what I don't need to really provide a really good show. And so that's where I really encourage you. Like somebody that's been doing this a long time, I still had issues just launching a new show. And if you look at Evan and I's beginning in May, some of those shows, like we had to figure out a dynamic. Granted, I kind of pulled Evan into my dynamic more than I went to his dynamic, but it works. It works. And so that's where I find that it's okay to be garbage. As long as you make it 1% better for the next one and post it, because then you make a commitment.
And people want to see your imperfections. That's the other misconception I see a lot of, especially I'm not even going to say podcasters, just new content creators out there in the field, as I say. A lot of people want to just strive for that super polished perfection and, no, like at the same time, it's kind of a choice, like because you can have, the most perfectly polished podcast. It's going to take a lot of editing depending on the person, but also, like the thing that, especially since like all the COVID stuff has happened and all that, people want to see just human nature, human elements, the little times that we, goof up on, when we're talking to each other or, when I'm thinking about what I have to say and I say because I do that a lot, or absolutely, stuff like that.
Absolutely, you do.
Yeah, absolutely. That's absolutely, dude. Absolutely is a big one for me. Yeah, and that's the other thing. That's another kind of good point I want to make is that, dude. When I say dude, as if I'm talking to somebody, when you listen to yourself, depending on the person, okay, but like at least speaking for myself, like it's not gonna sound at all the way it did when you recorded. Like you're gonna think it sounds a certain way. You're gonna listen back like, oh my gosh, I say a lot, or I could maybe not dwell on a particular topic for so long. And honestly, those are actually good thoughts. Like, because you're literally just thinking like, okay, I did this, I handled this way. How can I improve for the next episode? And yeah, to echo what you said, Kelvin, seriously, like the best thing you can do is throw stuff at the wall and see if it sticks. Mm-hmm. And if it sticks, then continue running with it because you're doing it. People are enjoying listening to your show. And also embrace the feedback big time. That's a huge one because
and you want the negative ones.
Feedback. You really want
negative ones make you better. The positive one don't.
No.
Because the negative ones, you want to get rid of that negativity, right?
Yeah.
And
of course.
I got a good one for you. You ready, guys? So my name is Kelvin, right? There's no negative degree Kelvin, so no negative here.
Bam! No negative degree.
But I mean, I think that's really, really key is embrace the feedback. But I think now that you kind of worked through this, what is the next thing that we would need to move forward with? And that is posting it. So where would you post your podcast, Evan?
Well, I would honestly, the thing with posting podcasts, there are a lot of platforms to go with. I would probably use something like Podbean or like Buzzsprout because there are other platforms like Anchor, although I think Spotify bought them.
Don't go to Anchor, please.
Yep.
Just don't.
Because the catch is, they have a lot of good services. They'll put your podcast on all the platforms, but the thing with Anchor is
they
also own your show.
Mm-hmm.
So the show really isn't yours, and kind of like similar to the having a contract for your co-host, they could easily just snarf that show away from you in an instant. And so I really can't recommend that. I can't recommend going with them just for that reason alone, because if this is your product, you got to own it and make it your product. Yep. But things like Podbean, Podbean actually is the one I can speak to the most because it's very accessible, and basically it allows you to upload your audio and it will distribute that audio on anything: Spotify, YouTube, Apple Podcasts, all of it.
Yep. Well, I think one of the thing is so you got Podbean, which is what I think you use, and then Buzzsprout is what I use, and then I also am a big fan of Libsyn. It's another one. So I would say Podbean, Buzzsprout, or Libsyn, or Blueberry. Those are all kind of really good hosting your podcast on. And why I'm saying the word hosting, because you can't just throw your podcast on a regular website and hope for the best. A term that you need to fully understand is an RSS feed.
Yep.
And so these are the things that you're going to have an RSS feed for your podcast. So that feed is what you're going to then send out to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Amazon, YouTube, and so forth. And that RSS feed goes to those different places. And by using Libsyn, Buzzsprout, Podbean, Blueberry, some of those others, then it just goes right out and it does it all for you.
Okay, go back. So your audio just went really weird for like 30 seconds. I'll have to show it to you afterwards. Outtakes. That's another fun thing with podcasts is that you especially once you really get into the nitty gritty of editing, you're gonna have freaking outtakes.
Yep.
Goodness gracious. There you go. Now you're back.
Well, as I was saying, so basically you take you create your hosting. So the other thing with your podcast hosting is a lot of these places have a place for you to put your website. They're not necessarily the greatest, but for visually impaired people, it works. Yeah. But I will say most podcast players on your website will not be fairly accessible. You need to use some fancy navigation to get into that play button. I don't know. Do you know any podcast players that are accessible for a website? I haven't found one that is fully user friendly without using some fancy navigation tools.
Yeah, honestly, I haven't found like an embeddable player like it. So if you have a website and you want to embed your podcast onto that website so people can listen to it, the platform that we use at Aftersight called Amperwave, I am not going to say anything about it because it's super niche, but they have an embedded player that we can basically you can throw it into a page on your website. So we have like a page for Blind Level Tech in the web player, and it's accessible to a point, but we had to make it accessible. So
yep.
I think having a website for your podcast is definitely a huge way to get people to your show. 100% something though that you definitely might want to consider down the road once you know you want to commit to the podcast. And honestly, what I would recommend doing as far as getting your show recognized and getting people listening to it, make sure you're distributing all your podcast episodes out on all of the possible, all of the big platforms that we'd mentioned. Mm-hmm. And at least get social media first. Mm. And so that whether that means creating a Facebook page for your podcast or a Mastodon channel or an account for that. Those are also really good ways of promoting your episodes. And also it's a good way for people to leave comments and feedback and also to reach out to you if they want to be on your show, if you're taking guests. So I wouldn't even get into a website first. I would honestly just try to put content out there and then establish a social media presence.
Yeah.
Is what I recommend doing.
Another really good thing to look into is getting a domain name.
Yep.
And so if you need a domain name, there are plenty of places to get domain names like GoDaddy. Really recommend don't go there. HostGator is another one. GoDaddy, they tend to get a little funky on some of their legalese, so just be careful if you're going to go buy something from them. But there are plenty. Like I use a local company here in San Diego called TierNet. They're pretty straightforward. I know a lot of blind people that use their customer service is awesome, and they're all based here in San Diego. So the TierNet is the website for that if you wanted something to work with there. But the key thing, if you get a domain name, and if I had to start all over, and this is kind of what I had to do with the Deafblind Potter show, is I didn't have time to continue to manage the website. So what I did is I created on Deafblind Potter YouTube a playlist, and that playlist holds all of my radio shows. So it's the Deafblind Potter show. So what I did is I redirected the domain name and I forwarded it to the link to my YouTube channel for that playlist. So every week you come on, you type in deafblindpottershow.com and it will take you to that YouTube playlist on YouTube. So that way it's super easy to find. You're on the most current video of the week, and you get to hear everything correct, and it works great. And since YouTube takes RSS feeds now, and like Buzzsprout,
Podbeam, they generate
Podbeam,
those RSS
they all
feeds.
push it to YouTube. So that if you just wanted to create your domain name and have it forward or redirect, it's called redirect. Let's use right terms here. Redirect
Yep.
to your YouTube channel. This way, all your links are in that description. All your links, everything you need is there, and you're done. You don't have to worry. So anybody that says, "Oh, where's your website?" You're taking them directly to that YouTube channel, and you don't have to worry about a website.
That's true. That would work.
So,
it is a little extra, but I think it's a good method if you want a solid podcast.
Yeah. So the other thing is, should you start off with a video podcast or just an audio podcast? What would you do?
Yep, you were totally picking up what I'm putting down. Because you said video a few minutes ago when we were talking YouTube, and honestly, that's a thing. That's an element of podcasting that's kind of recent. But do you want to have video in your podcasts? Do you want people to see your your face, or do you want it to just be a
you're
solely
saying my
audio
big
experience?
face? You know, I'm offended. I'm totally offended.
I don't even have a good comeback for that either. Darn it.
Hey, everybody, you heard it there first. He stumbled over big face.
I stumbled over big face and I couldn't come out of it either. Whoops. But do you want, that's another important decision to make, is that do you want video in your podcast? Because I don't know. A video and a podcast are two separate things, but I do see them being, they are quite trendy, and I do see a lot of video podcasts like gaining in popularity. So yeah, what are your thoughts? I know you have video on all your podcasts.
No, I do not. Perseverance podcast is only audio.
Cool.
So Deafblind Potter is video and audio. The Deafblind Potter show, and so for me, when I think about video podcast, you gotta understand why you doing it. Are you doing it to get reach on YouTube? Because that's really why you're going to make a video podcast, is to put it on YouTube. Yes, you can put it on Spotify and some of the other places, but you're also going to have to pay more for that. So, again, like for me, I'm like, I got Buzzsprout, and then since the radio show that I'm on, they post the podcast version, which that's a whole different debate another day. Anyway. So, but the other part is, for me to be able to create my own and still control my Deafblind Potter show, I needed to create it on my own platform. And so YouTube was the best way to do that without having to do the podcast side of things. It's already being produced as a podcast after the show goes live. So
exactly.
And so for me, if I were you, really ask yourself the question: is YouTube going to be your place that you're going to reach? The other thing is, you can still do a non-video podcast on YouTube, and that's what happens with Buzzsprout or
Blind Level Tech and
it goes up on YouTube. It's just a thumbnail of your logo saying and that's it. Like, there's nothing too fancy. So people can still find it on YouTube. It can still be searchable with just my audio. So one thing that I don't practice this, but if you are looking to use SEO, search optimization, or search engine optimization, you need to do a transcript. I don't personally do that.
Because it takes a minute. Like right now, the platform we're recording in Riverside, it does all this stuff automatically for us, which is nice. But if you don't have Riverside or any of that, you have to find another tool to upload the audio to and let it transcribe it for you. And
yep.
Yeah.
And then you gotta go back and edit it, because it's not always 100%.
Yeah. Nope. Proofreading it, because I've realized too with this with the transcripts here, Riverside has a lot of those AI auto description generation and stuff like that. I use those really as building blocks just to help me write better descriptions and stuff more cohesively, but I don't just let it do the work for me at all. especially because this thing's called the show Blind Level Check before. So yeah, if that says anything,
it's
just
the blind level check. How much you gonna write a check for me today?
It's going to be a blank check, so I don't know. That's the thing. That's the other thing too. There are a lot of good automated, tools out there to help you edit, to help you come up with titles and descriptions. And the only thing I will say about those is that you can absolutely use those. They will save you time, but don't let them replace your creativity. That's the best way I can word it.
Yep.
Now, I guess one last kind of final thing, because this has been a bit of a longer episode here, is media for your show. And that is kind of more like sound effects and music and stuff like that. Because, the way you start a show off and the way you hook your audience is very, very important. As anybody who's listened to BLT for just in general knows, we kind of start off with the intro that we have, and it leads into the show. It has a static voiceover that was recorded by Jonathan and stuff. We are going to be changing some of that stuff next year, by the way. Just saying. I got to put that out there. There's going to be some new refreshed intros.
Oh, boy.
Change. Oh, boy.
I don't know, man. That's change.
I don't either. That's what I say. But if you're looking for, if anybody's ever curious, the music that we use in Blind Level Tech for the intro and outro was created by Jonathan. But if you're looking at like a way to find, some free royalty free music, or if you want to make it yourself, that's definitely something you want to consider first. And especially if you want to put your content out there, I would at least recommend having some sort of a good solid intro and outro. And that doesn't even mean music necessarily either, but just knowing how you want to introduce the show and how you want to end it.
When I use Soundstripe for all my royalty free music, I just pay a yearly fee for that and just tell it where it's going to go, and it provides all the licensing. But one last thing before we wrap up, if you want to start your podcast before, say, January 2025, that's when you want to launch the first day of January, you need to go apply for your RSS feed and your application for Apple Podcast.
Yep.
Before December 1st. Because it's going to take about 2 weeks to get approval. Well, and then you're going to run into the holidays. So you're not going to get approved for your Apple Podcast if you want to go live January 1st with your podcast. So this happens to everybody every year, is that you need to get your application in to Apple Podcast before December 1st. So you have enough time to launch in January. So just a little nugget there for you.
Apple Podcasts is, at least from my experience, is one of the most interesting platforms as far as getting your podcast on.
Yep.
I'm not going to go into nitty-gritty detail about how they work, but if you want to get on Apple Podcast, fill that application out early. If you want a Buzzsprout account or a Podbean account, do that now. Fill those out early, so that way you have those credentials in hand. You have access to be able to create the RSS feed, and you have a platform to put your podcast out on, and you're ready to get the show going on a good foot. Now, another fun thing you can do. Go ahead. Sorry.
Well, I'm getting pretty hungry though.
No, me too. I'm getting hungry. And another fun thing that you can add to your show is fun little sections that happen regularly throughout each episode that people can expect. And those little sections can even have little fun jingles with them and anything. You can really have fun with it, including
the sandwich of the week.
My goodness. So I actually finally have an original sandwich.
Original? So what is this called? I am excited.
Oh, it's not original to me, though. Sorry to disappoint.
Come on, man. You just let me down. You totally let me down.
I did. But I was hanging out with a good buddy over the weekend in Brighton, Colorado, and we went to this bar called the Copper Rail. And they have really, really good. It's a burger bar. And all I'm going to say is bison burger.
What's that?
Bison burger from Copper Rail. It was delicious. It had pepper jack cheese, peppers, lettuce. I don't know if it had pickle on it. I don't know. Bison burger and pickle is kind of weird, but it was bison meat in general is just a lot more gamey tasting, or it's got more of like a savory spice to it. So my sandwich this week is going to be a bison burger from Copper Rail. How about you?
Well, my sandwich of the week, man. I've been going all over the place with whatever my sandwich of the week is, but I think I'm gonna stay on the breakfast side of things. And so there's a donut shop by my house called Rose Donuts. One of the best donuts ever. If you want some good, like, wow flavored donut, that's the place to go. But they also have a wow sandwich, and it is a breakfast with a croissant. And I tell you, this thing is huge. It's about the size of a dessert plate at a restaurant where you get a dessert plate. It's like the whole size of a dessert plate. And
whoa,
it had bacon, ham, and turkey with mayonnaise and cheese. And it's toasted. And wow, you put that in your mouth. And you add and you get it as a combo. So you get your little donut with it. And I tell you, the salty and sweet, that's something to go for.
I feel like a good cup of coffee would just complement it.
Right? Exactly.
Oh, man. Well, that sounds delicious. Well, Kelvin, is there anything you'd like to wrap up with before we wrap up this episode in its entirety?
I think if you want a podcast, just do it.
Seriously.
Just stop talking about it. Just do it. Because the more you talk about it, the more you're going to leave it behind in the rearview mirror. Nope, don't do that. Just do it.
Open up, if you know what you want to talk about and you want to at least get some sort of audio recorded, whether you release it or not, totally up to you. I would say release it, unless it is absolute, you just can. If you don't have an app, just press record, or everybody that has an iPhone has voice memos, or if you have an Android, or even better, on a computer, download an app that allows you to just record audio and sit down and just talk and pretend that you're on a podcast and, get yourself into that mindset. And that's just a really a good way to at least get started podcasting. And, then you'll have time to figure out where you want to put your stuff, what you want it to sound like, and how you want to brand your show. So just start small, take it in steps. But I think that the overarching thing is do it. The only thing that's stopping you from doing podcasting is literally yourself. And if anybody has any questions or feedback or anything for Kelvin and I, reach out to us. Definitely, we're happy to answer any questions, and we want to just motivate those individuals who want to make change in their community and who want to do big things to get out and do them. I mean, it sounds, the way I'm saying it right now, it sounds totally cheesy, and that being said too, just kind of an announcement here before we actually wrap up this episode, because it's kind of a big deal and I really should have left this for the beginning, but at Aftersight here, Colorado Gives Day is coming up and it's on December 10th. And it's a big deal for us because it's, one of the biggest days for philanthropy in Colorado. And, there's a whole bunch of, hundreds of other nonprofits and organizations out there on coloradogivesday.org. So if you'd like to help us towards our $15,000 goal for Colorado Gives Day on December 10th, go to coloradogivesday.org/organizations/aftersight, or you could just go to coloradogivesday.org and search for hundreds of other nonprofits and charitable organizations to donate to. It's awesome, and I'm really glad that they've added a lot more incentives, and I love what they've done with the website. You can see the progress that you've made towards an organization's goal. So they've done a lot of good stuff. So go check it out for sure. And of course, if you have any questions, comments, or feedback, you can always email feedback@aftersight.org or leave a voicemail. And I want to get more of these. If you have tech tips or tech questions or feedback, really want to, I want to get more voicemails at 720-712-8856 because it's a really good way for you to, if you want to be, if you have something that you would like us to talk about, or if you want your voice to be heard on this show or on any of other platforms, that's a great way to do that. With that being said, I have been your host, Evan Starnes, and this is my co-host, Kelvin Crosby.
Go live beyond your challenges and plug in your device.
I'm gonna go grab some coffee now, because holy cow, do I need it.